Good day to you, and welcome to what I'm hoping will be a positive conversation around the topic of conspiracy theories. I picked the title for this episode specifically because I was watching my YouTube the other day, and I saw Ian Carroll. And if you don't know who he is, and I'll link the video from his post below, but Ian's a very gifted young man, very intelligent young man, and he's you can tell he woke up to the conspiracy theory world, and he talks about his own journey if you get into his content. But he found out about it because he was trying to figure out how to eat the best for himself, and you find out that becomes an inroad for a lot of folks when they start really figuring out how bastardized corporate food is, and then they start looking at the financial entities running that, and then they just want to keep figuring out, right? There's a famous Nietzsche quote that says there's two types of people, those who want to believe and those who want to know. Ian would probably fall into that category of wanting to know. I'm 44, so I fall into the hybrid category of I believe what I believe implicitly and I can defend it, and I know what I know that I think I know. I know what I can figure out on the internet. I know what I can see through multiple contact points through history. And I know what I can pattern match to what I've been told to look out for in my life, as well as independent research outside of normative channels that will tell you that this is a waste of time. Why have I spent a lifetime doing these things? Well, first and foremost, I'm a retired fire captain paramedic, and I've participated in low-level local government conspiracy, right? What do I mean by that? I actually have a video here on my channel that talks about what I went through and the price of speaking out against any level of government conspiracy. It just ruins your life. So ruins your career. You lose all your friends. It's not a great time. So I covered that in another video. If you want to understand why these conspiracies are going on, it's because there's not a lot of people like me who will stand up when it matters. Now, my whole thing comes around the abuse of an individual, as well as I had a lot of problems during the pandemic. At that point, I had had enough of, just keeping the public narrative so that everybody felt safe and in control. Our policies actually forbid us from speaking out against anything. If we did, we would get fired. And that happened about in 2009. So if you think about that, if my fire department here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I didn't work for Phoenix, I worked for a small agency, but we all copy Phoenix's system. If my small fire department had a policy that said I couldn't say anything that would bring discredit to the fire department on my personal social media since, I think 09, 2010, somewhere in there is when we got all those policies. That means that for the last 16 years, the people that you're paying to keep you safe, at least in the Phoenix area, haven't been fully free to speak about anything that they might see behind the curtain, if you will. And I had seen enough stuff where I was just done with it. I was done with participating with a system that I thought I could make a difference within. The naivete of youth is a powerful thing. And, people who are older and wiser use that against us. So, yeah, I've been through the ringer with everybody else. I can do all the research like everybody else. And the thing is what you find is the minute somebody goes into the rabbit hole and they figure out that the rabbit hole's deeper and darker than they ever want to consider, they always come to the conclusion of like, well, what do we do about it? And nobody's going to like this answer. You're going to immediately reject it. You're going to be like, oh, it's never going to work because we haven't seen it work. And the thing is, there's a difference between something that's possible, something that's probable, and something that's, eventual, right? The eventuality is we're going to wake up to what's going on and we're going to we're going to change the way that we're living. The probability is that it's going to take the next few election cycles, and our big question is, what does our society look like with the onset of AI and the current power structures running all these things that are going to be implemented in the next decade or so? So that's why anxiety around this situation and this topic is at an all-time high. And being a fire captain paramedic, I mean, if you don't think that we hear every single conspiracy theory that's ever been, perpetuated, like the amount of existential crisis that I have had to run a 911 call because of, where somebody had just realized that, like, I don't know, pick a topic, that they're oat bran was made by a company that used to own slaves or something. You'll have people that just lose their complete worldview shatters over a realization of the butterfly effect of, something that they've held sacred. And it's interesting, right? And then that's where people reject their traditional upbringings and whatnot. And part of that's a psyop to shuck off the yoke of the past and come over to the new thing. And we've all been conditioned to this idea of universal human dignity. One world, we're all one people. We got to come together, save the planet. We got to come together. There might be aliens, right? And so we've been primed for this whole idea of like, what are we? Who are we? And it's very interesting to be alive in 2026. Be a guy that's 44 and who's known about conspiracies since I was a kid, because my dad always talked about them. So, background on my old man was he was a firefighter as well. He was also a Freemason. So was my granddad. My Jewish stepmother took me to catechism so that we could get more parenting time with my dad and his and my stepmom against my mom, who was Catholic. So they had to take me to church to show that they were raising me right, and how my mom wasn't. I don't know. But I went to a lot of therapy. And what I've understood out of therapy is this: we have these foundational relationships in our life, and if they're not properly nurturing, we come out a little goofy, and we got to figure out what all that means. And that's where like my start of my existential crisis to figure out how the world works started. My dad used to tell me constantly he didn't want to have kids because he knew that there was some big plan to enslave humanity coming. And I was, as a kid, you're just like, whatever, dude. Like, can you take me to go get a soda, a bag of chips, and take me to my Little League game? I don't care. Let me know when they come for us. I'll jump in the truck with you. We can take all the stockpiled food ammo and survival gear and live off the land like you keep talking about. Like, I just didn't give it the credence that, but I just, I listened to it, right? And it just kept going. And then in the 90s, I actually texted my friend about this. I'm like, remember when our dads were talking about Clinton going to an island and, sleeping with underage girls, and that's how the globalists owned him back in the 90s? Because my dad literally would talk about this stuff at my baseball games with my buddy's dad, who was really into the game with conspiracy theories. And he was a cop, by the way. My buddy's dad was a cop. My dad was a firefighter. Freemason. So like these guys were running in these circles where I don't know what they were talking about, but they didn't share it with us kids other than the extent of like, something's coming, these people have bad plans, current, moneyless systems, all that stuff is part of it. And I worked for Wells Fargo, and they would talk about how cashless society was going to be so much better for our stock prices and our retirement funds because of the cost to process money would go away, and then that would be more revenue for the bank. So they were selling cashless society to the employees internally back in the early 2000s as a great thing for our long-term benefit, so that we would sell debit cards, things like that. Now if you look at Apple Pay and the onset of all those electronic mechanisms of currency exchange, like we really have a system that can be controlled with hey, we'll shut you down if we don't like what you're talking about. And that's terrifying, right? So being told all this stuff's happening, seeing it all kind of play out, seeing how it's being sold to gullible people who are just like, this is a great idea. Because most people just want to go to work, get enough fun tokens to go enjoy their afternoon and their weekend, and then not have to do that after 20 to 30 years. Like, that's literally what the bell curve of the American population is looking at. And that's all they really care about. So when they vote, they just basically pick whatever is popular inside their little friend group, and then they can go to barbecues and whatnot. What winds up happening is people start researching things independently, and then that's when you get fights at bars and, your candidate's owned by these people, your candidate's owned by these people. Well, technically they're both owned by the same people because they all house their money at the same place. So it is what it is, dude. Like, it's been that way for centuries, and to call out one tribe or another as being the heretical tribe that's screwing over humanity right now, well, I mean, we've all participated, right? And we all have a hand in it. And us as Americans, what can we do about that? Well, the idea is we have to vote. We have to vote for people who aren't going to serve that system and are going to serve the American people with the tax dollars we give them, because they're technically our employees that we hire through voting. How does the whole system break down? Well, we don't show up for primaries, and then by the time the general election comes around, you get, homogenized milk from brand A and homogenized milk from brand B, and you could have elected raw milk back at the primaries, but you didn't show up and you didn't research anybody. So that's kind of the thing, man. Like, we'll all go source fancy foods and whatnot for our health and our wellness and those things, but we're not sourcing healthy politicians. And until we make that change, make that commitment collectively, like, this is going to continue, because everybody who's running our system currently is bought into whatever version of the game they're playing for whatever prize they're wanting to get, right? Whether it's a pension or whether it's, a promotion or a place at the table in some sort of grand conspiracy, everybody's playing for a better seat in some sort of gross game of, duck, duck, goose, or, what's the one where they take the chair out? I can't remember that one. All the kids get up, they take one chair, and you got to sit down, and some kid gets screwed. Does that ring around the rosy? No, that's a different one. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. But that's where everybody's at. They're all focused on getting the chair in the next round of the game. And they don't have time to look up and look at these politicians and go, hey, is this person bought, right or left? Now, we have a weapon, we have a tool now called artificial intelligence, and instead of building these complex AI algorithms to research all the corruption, shouldn't we be building complex algorithms and applications and AIs that are going to look at candidates, organic candidates and purchase candidates, and give us a rating on those? That would be the quickest way, is to create, from the citizenry, a way to rate these politicians based off of their financial, personal connections to things that aren't necessarily healthy for, the future of humanity. And again, it's going to take a few election cycles to get through it. What's going to play out in Iran between then and now, it's going to play out, right? They're going to be able to recruit enough people to put on uniforms. They're going to be able to do all those things. I say that as somebody who served in the Marine Corps from 2002 to 2006, because 9/11 was, it was a sucker punch. It was a cheap shot. It was radicals who were, upset with the way we live, and their radical beliefs within their theology, state that they have to conquer us and force us to believe, in the way that they believe in God, and that's literally written in their holy texts. So, I looked at that being like, well, there's a secularized world of Islam that respects universal human dignity, and then there's those people who want to, still follow those older texts that say you have to do it our way. So, maybe we have a chance with this generation to go over and, quell that, because it's been a problem for the last couple of decades, because we haven't been able to go in there and actually, all the post-Vietnam conflicts just flip-flop based off of public dissent. And I've always thought that was a mechanism of, just making money and creating long-term engagements where our last little conflict creates, people who are waiting to retaliate. And it's pretty clear that cycle is the last 100 years worth, after, World War II on. And we can talk about World War II and all the conspiracies there too, if you want. Well-versed in all of it. But does it matter, really? I mean, what matters is you have the ability to vote better. What matters is you have the ability to share with your neighbor that, hey, I don't think the people that we're giving our money to every April, whatever, are spending this money to the best of their ability for you and me, right? How do we hire somebody who will? How do we take our minds and eyes away from DraftKings or, Candy Crush Saga? Go down the list of distractions on our phones where you could sit down and, get a list of you could put in your address, get a list of everybody who you've hired that's taking your tax dollars to work for you. Understand who they all are, understand what they do, understand who they're connected to, and then vote accordingly. Like, that would be a powerful tool through artificial intelligence for we the people to self-govern with more efficiency and more effectiveness. But we're not focused on that. We're focused on, Kalshi and figuring out if Trump's gonna, do something weird, or, if Kanye is gonna flip out again. It's ridiculous. I mean, we're so distracted with games and, what they would call, bread and circuses, that we don't focus on our civic duty to make sure that this place is going to be run the way we want it to, and so that it's better for our children, right? And like I said, dude, I grew up, George Herbert Walker Bush, man, he said it, and I forget which speech it was, but he's like, 1,000 points of light, a new world order. And my dad was like, right there. He just announced it. And I was like, okay, what does that even mean? And I started thinking about it, over the years, and every conspiracy video you watch, that thing will pop up here and there. And if you do a little bit of research, you'll find this little fun fact that the World Economic Forum has 1,000 donor companies originally, right? And so when you know that the World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab, some of his declarations, and you put that little tidbit of that 1,000 points of light, a new world order, WEF talks about a new world order, they have 1,000 donor companies. Is that just a coincidence? It could be. But for me, that was one of those things where I was like, well, those dots line up, and there does seem to be a corporate structure that wants to have us all give them money so that everybody who's in part of their power structure lives extremely well, and we continue to have a declining quality of life. And why is it being done? So that we'll elect somebody who will declare that we're all going to get universal basic income and get to screw off with our days, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the hope is for some of these people, or why they think this is going to be our future. But I got another piece of hope for you. You don't have to listen to everything that's on the screen. You don't have to listen to me. You can think I'm full of crap, right? You can just turn this off and walk away. You can go build something out of raw lumber that's beautiful. You can do whatever you want with your time. That's the beauty of free will. What I'm saying is the conspiracies all exist because we don't take that free time and that free will to come together and focus the way we vote, and vote for people who aren't going to buy into some idea of globalism under saving the planet so that we can, the generations ahead of us will have a chance. We're technically in a population decline globally. And if you get back and look at the macro numbers, it's the truth. And I say this coming from an Irish family that, there was 8 kids out of one of the couple pairs, and there wasn't enough kids to replace those 8 kids had by those 8 kids. And I look at my family, I'm the only child of a couple of families. So they didn't even, repopulate to the same numbers that they were in the 1950s. So, that's, that's anecdotal, that's your personal story, but then you come back a little bit and you look and you see the macro numbers show that there's population decline in a lot of different countries and cultures. So that's interesting, right? That's a very real fact. And if you don't process that and look at it, then what are you talking about? So if we are in a population decline, we are having all these problems, the Earth's going to get better through, better farming practices, all those things that we're bringing forth right now that haven't hit that full proliferation through the different industries because they don't make enough money yet, or they haven't been made profitable enough yet. That's coming, right? So they talk about a great reset and all these things, and they're right to an extent. We have a tipping point of, hey, what we're doing isn't appropriate. What we're doing isn't working right. Now, if we're in control of that reset or not is up to us as voters. We have the ability to come together with our free will, our God-given ability to process logic and truth, and do something about it. We can say, hey, I want only officials that are going to get us into a financial system that does not have to be a slave to international banking, trends and all those things. But the last couple presidents that declared they were going to do that, it didn't work out so well for them in the long run. If those presidents were in Washington, D.C., backed by a Congress, backed by a Senate that also had that belief, at least of the majority of the votes, that's when it has a chance, right? Because there's too many people in the stack that are saying, hey, we want this. And if the American people are demanding it at scale, the system goes, oh wait, the workers are saying that they will not tolerate this anymore. Oh no, what do we do? And the darker conspiracy theorists out there will be like, they'll false flag it before that happens, or something of that nature. And probably not wrong. They'll kick off a greater war than we're in, and then unify us all around that again. But to the point, man, we draw breath, and if we draw breath, we have an opportunity to leave it better than we found it. That's what I learned in the Marines. That's what I learned on the fire department. I chose those careers for a specific reason. So if society fell apart, how are you going to live? How are you going to survive? If you're a former paramedic and you served in the military and you've been hunting and fishing and living outdoors, for recreation your entire life, you got a fighting chance. I did the jobs I did for the skill sets they provided and the experience they provided so that I could be a substantial dude. You know, I knew I couldn't do anything about the conspiracy theories because nobody cared, nobody listened. You know, everybody made fun of you for talking about it. And now we're post Epstein files release, and everybody's going, "Oh wait, you know, all that crazy stuff we wanted to believe wasn't true is. Oh no, what do we do now? Vote better, just vote better. That's what we do now, if we want to. If we want to continue to complain about who's corrupt, why they're corrupt, and you know where they come in from, yeah, man, you can spend the rest of your life making, you know, the detective board, right, with the picture in the middle and all the strings everywhere. You can spend the rest of your days creating chart after chart that would cover more walls than we have of corrupt people being selfish and serving themselves and their families so that they could eat better than you and yours. That's all that's going on. It's really kind of a beautiful thing if you think about it. You stop and think about it. You know, get out of the emotion of it. The beauty of it is that every race, every creed, every religion, every single, you know, worldview, they're all participating in this, showing that we are universally the same species. Now, we go deeper in the hole. We have the reptilian arguments and all that. I'm old school on all that stuff. I was born Catholic. I'm going to stay Catholic the rest of my life. Don't talk to me about the Vatican. Don't care. Catholicism is about how I follow Jesus here locally in my community and how I treat everybody with mutual respect and, you know, want to see the best for folks. That's me. What's going on in the superstructure of my faith's, you know, institutions, that's up to them, right? They got to talk to God about that at the end of their ride, like I have to talk to God about how I followed him at the end of mine. It's the nice thing about religion and faith is you can just follow it, right? And you don't have to go along with what your bosses tell you when you know it's wrong against Scripture. And that's really where Western society has come from as we keep reading the New Testament and being like, hey, no Jew, no Greek, no free, no slave, no man, no woman, you're all one under Christ. Well, if Christ is actually the God of the universe, the God of creation, that means that the entire species is a child of God, all children of God, just taught different things from different backgrounds, and we should all want the best for one another. That's really all Christianity states. And I believe that in my whole heart. I think that's right. I think that we just are all vibing on dumb things, and you know how a person conceptualizes God really drives what they do for the rest of their life. It just does. If you think there is no God, you're just going to try to live your best life. If you think that if you think there's no God and you're an evolution above because of your level of intellect, well, then you're probably going to prey on people who aren't as smart. If you think you're part of a tribe that's chosen to be above everybody else, you're probably going to do things for you to be above everybody else, whether it's beneficial for them or not. And you can believe in Jesus and read everything and act the exact same way. And the entire Scripture is full of examples of that, of, you know, priests who won't help out people, things like that. So what I'm getting at is that how we interact with each other is an act of faith, an act of belief. Who we vote for is an act of declaration of how we want to be led and how we want to, you know, be interacted with. What's in your heart? I don't know. Don't care. First Amendment allows you to do whatever you want. First Amendment allows me to believe what I just talked about. I have nothing but, you know, good intentions for everybody out there. I want everybody to have the best life they can. I mean, there's a reason I was in the Marines. There's a reason I was in the fire department. It was to buy you guys enough time to research this crap on the internet and vote better. You know, I've voted for the establishment more times than I care to talk about, but I vote one direction only, and that is for the sovereignty of self-defense. They can't, you know, completely enslave you if you draw a breath and have the tools to push back. Do I want that? Absolutely not. I've seen war, I've seen violence. You don't want that either, trust me, especially if you're just a video game playing narcissist. We need to come together, right? We have to vote better. And regardless of your worldview, I hope that you take this seriously, and I hope that you talk to somebody that you know, an actual physical person, right? You can share this with somebody you know that's an actual physical person. You can say, hey, you know, heard this guy talk about the fact that, yeah, it's all screwed up, but we can vote for better people that will A, hold accountability to all the screwed up stuff, and B, you know, get us out of this trench that we're going, you know, like we're going down a track right now. can we jump the track and be self-governing again? That's really the question 2026 and beyond, in my opinion. That's really the question post-pandemic, because we woke up. And now that everybody's awake and everybody's pissed, let's calm down, take a breath, and focus. What can we do? Vote better. That's it, guys. Again, if this is been something that you value, please share it, do all those things. I don't have time. This is sponsored by you and your desire to listen to it. I'm an entrepreneur. I got a family. I got so much other stuff going on that I'm way more into than trying to explain to people that there are human beings out there who are sociopathic narcissists who think they should run the world, and they've been trying to for generations. Who they serve, what they serve, the rabbit hole's there, man. The internet's full of it. Vote for people who don't. I don't know what else to say, guys. We have the tools now. We have the internet. We have the connectivity. We have the artificial intelligence that can be given prompts to find the right people. Do it. You kids know how to use this stuff way better than my generation. We drank out of garden hoses and had pagers, right? These fancy things came along, and we know how to use them in a rudimentary manner to the point that I can put on a microphone, film a thing, put a couple things together on the internet and say, hey, I get it. It's screwed up, but we can fix it. I've always felt that way, always will feel that way. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? That's my prayer. It's my hope, however you want to conceptualize that. But how a person conceptualizes God drives everything they do. So I'm just blessed I was born into a house that was like, pick Jesus, pick God of the Old Testament, or just go wild and listen to your teachers. And I kept asking the question, is Jesus the right way? And, take care of all humans. Okay. Nobody does, but I'll do my best, sir. And that's really how I've lived my life, right? God made everything. I loved us so much. He came down here and was like, hey, just take care of each other, let each other in. And the people who were in charge of, that power were like, nah, this is just for us. And I think that that's continuing a little bit. And that's sad, because a connection to both Jesus and the God of creation as an individual is a beautiful, beautiful gift, and it's been given to all of us. And I'm not trying to, convert anybody. I'm just defending my faith and why I believe in it. So anyway, guys, like I said, go forth and vote better, and I'll see you on the next one.